So hi everyone, today we're talking about how to reach your inflection point in tech. This is a term I feel I've coined, but might just be a more abstract concept. It represents the point after which you don't really need external motivation and you've become self-sufficient when it comes to coding. The concept exists in various other fields. For example, there are a bunch of gym fitness influencers and a bunch of people who can't really go through their day without going to the gym. I have a bunch of friends who smoke a lot and they can't really start their day without smoking. Probably not the best example here, but you get the idea. It's some habit that comes inherently to you and how you can make coding that habit so that whatever compounding effects it might have in your career, thanks to tech being so lucrative, you can try to get there. Let's talk about 10 points that might help you reach that inflection point and how I've been trying to reach my inflection point in other fields that I've been struggling. Let's get right into it. Alright, so point one. Being consistent and showing up every day. I think when you've not reached an inflection point, this is probably one of the biggest struggle. In tech, it's not the biggest, it's probably in the top 3, where you don't have inherent motivation to get into this field. The similar alternate for me is fitness, where I've been struggling to get a little fit and I don't have the motivation to wake up every day. I don't feel like there is a very lucrative outcome at the very end because, well, AI is here, not for fitness, but like you get the idea.
What are you saying?
Layoffs are here, AI is here. What if this is not the field for me? What if this field dies in the next few years? So it's very hard to be consistent. You wake up one day, you go to the gym, you do coding, whatever, but through the struggles and things you have to do throughout your day, next day you don't have the motivation, you don't have the time, and you're back at square one. The thing about reaching the inflection point is, as you saw in the thumbnail of this video, you start and unless you cross the chasm, you'll basically be back at zero. It's similar to 75 hard challenge where unless you've crossed the chasm, if you stop, you're back at square one because the thing that you're trying to learn is very hard and you need some muscle memory which only comes if you've been consistent. So step one is basically coding every day. Could be 15 minutes, ideally is at least 4 hours. If you code for 4 hours every day for a span of 30 days, your journey to crossing the chasm at least begins. Second point, a daily reminder of motivation. We as humans function a very weird way, which is we know it's good for me to be fit. You might know it's good for you to get into tech because it is a lucrative field, but we try to find reasons as to why it might not be. AI is here, layoffs are here, and it might not be the best thing to become a software developer today. And for me, it's like, let's just walk and get on with that day. Let's not try to be really fit. You need a daily reminder of motivation. For me, that's been looking at the mirror and looking at YouTube comments telling me I'm getting fat.
You are getting fat.
For you, it could be people on YouTube. It could mostly be your family. And if you have that at the back of your head at all times, when you're trying to get into this field, when you're crossing the 0 to 1 journey and trying to cross the inflection point, the first point becomes much more easy, which is you're much more consistent because you have that daily dose of reminder, okay, this is why I'm doing this. Thankfully for me, there are mirrors at my house, so I can see I'm not getting fit as time goes by. For you, it might be that 100k offer, that 500k offer, that first 3 LPA offer or whatever it might be. Initially, I would put that up somewhere and look at it on a daily basis because daily dose of motivation is necessary unless and until you've reached your inflection point. Third point, having humble beginnings helps. A lot of people get ruffled by the fact that ye to ameer tha, isliye iska ho gaya. Yeah, he had a very good background, which is why it was easy for him/her to do this. And I feel the opposite is true. When I find someone who's come from a very strong business family, yet they've done well in tech, my respect for them goes up because it was actually much harder for them to get into tech. Not because of conventional reasons. I do understand they had more opportunity, but at the same time, they had a lot of distractions. It's very hard for you to see any outcome of that first 1 lakh per month offer if you already have a business that's doing 5 lakh per month. It's also much more comfortable to sit at a business in a brick and mortar setup than hustling every day, trying to get into a good engineering college and then trying to get a good offer. So if you are from humble beginnings, which means you're from a middle class family, the stacks are actually aligned towards your side because the second point, the daily dose of motivation, you don't really have to worry about that. You have a lot of that inherently. This is one of the reasons most people that go into tech, most people that go into ITs are from lower middle class families, and middle class families may be upper middle class, but not a lot of really rich people, because they have other motivations, and that makes the odds stacked towards your side if you're from humble beginnings. So just keep that in mind. Don't think of that as a disadvantage. I do get they have more opportunity, but you have more motivation, and in the end, motivation might matter much more than a fancy tuition or whatever comfort they get with more money. Fourth point, this one's important. Social media, taking advice from there very wisely. You might follow a fitness influencer and feel like you're the one who's doing all the work, but they're the ones who are actually growing 10x. Same applies for tech influencers. Now that I teach a course, I realize that I learn certain technologies much faster than sort of my students, because I spend a lot of time trying to learn them myself, and since I'm the one who's going to be questioned a lot as to how this technology works, I spend a lot of time understanding the depths of it. On social media, it's easy to follow people and feel like their journey is ours, but it isn't. Your journey is your own, and I'm talking directly to you here through the camera. You are the one who has to build your own path. So do follow influencers, take them very nuanced, take advice from them in a very nuanced fashion for two things. One, motivation. If there's a person who's gotten into FANG and you've always wanted to get into FANG, looking at their videos will give you motivation. Motivation will lead you to working more hard. Number two, actionable advice. That basically tutorials, understanding how they got there. If it is a FANG you want to get into, you have to do DSA. So following DSA tutorials and being very focused on getting advice in these two factors. One, actionable videos. Two, motivation videos. That's all you need from social media. And keep your social media intake to a minimum, which means maybe less than 30 minutes a day. Especially when you're trying to cross the inflection point. After that, do whatever. But until you've reached there, it's a very weird trap to get into, and you might feel you're being productive because all you're following is tech influencers and not random people dancing on the internet. But I think it's as toxic as random people dancing. So be very careful as to how much time you're spending on social media. Point number 5, do small things, but do them consistently. It's the easier path whenever you're trying to cross the inflection point in something is, try out everything. I want to do DSA, I want to do development, I want to do, games, full stack, and a bunch of other things, AI, ML, Web3. The problem is you never really get good at anything. You have very surface level knowledge of everything. This happens when you're trying to get into fitness as well. You go for a run one day, go to the gym the other day, go for some Zumba class the third day. Initially, it might be okay to get some hands dirty. It might be okay, but I know if I really have to be good at fitness, or if you have to get into tech, you have to go very deep in one technology rather than jumping from one to the other, because it gives you a false sense of satisfaction that I know everything when you don't really know anything. So I would strongly, after the first few days, just pick one technology and go deep at it, become the top 5% in that, and then move on to the next thing, rather than jumping ships, because it gives you a false sense of learning. It's the easy path. Learning everything from the surface level is much easier than going into the depths of one technology. So choose the second one. It will serve you well. Else you'll be stuck in this false feedback loop of, well, I know everything, why I'm not getting a job? And that's because it's easier to get a job in one thing if you're very good at it. It's much harder to get it in anything if you're moderately good at them. Alright, let's move to the 6th point. Before that, let me grab some water. Alright, so the 7th and the 8th point are pretty related to each other. 7th point is, tech isn't for everyone. And by tech, I mean just coding and being a software developer might not be for everyone. If there are 100 people watching this, there's always 10% of the people who don't have like a coding bent of mind, and that is totally fine. The good thing is you can try to reach the inflection point, and if it's been maybe more than 7-8 months and you feel like you're not really learning anything and you've tried your best, that's the point to call it quits and the good thing is the world is very big and there are a bunch of other things to do. So if you don't feel like you're even starting to cross the chasm in 7 months of learning software development consistently, it's a good idea to call it quits and then work on a bunch of other things, which brings me to the 8th. The network matters a lot. I've seen once I got into remote work, everyone from my family, my friends got into remote work. I have 2 very close examples of people who are not in tech roles but do work at tech companies, and the good thing is tech companies pay well. You might not make as much as a software developer, even though you could, but you'll at least make 50% of that, which isn't too bad either. I have 2 such examples in my life. One from my family, someone who I referred to one of the companies I used to work at, and they are in marketing. They make around 100k in India, which is pretty lucrative. What hits their bank is 5 to 6 lakh rupees a month, and then of course they have to pay taxes on top. But it's not bad at all, and they don't have to code. They spend their time marketing. I have tried to teach that person how to code, and it's not worked out. And I realized, yeah, okay, there is a certain section of people, जिनका जैसे maths weak होता है. I mean, you can always find. I always struggle with maths. So some people struggle with physics. You can be the one who struggles with coding, and that's fine because the field is too big. And as long as you have the right network, you can still get into tech. And for me, that's been one person in my family who works in marketing. To another person I know, a friend who's working as a DevRel. They also make 150k cash from India remotely. So because these people have been in my network and I have literally zero sort of contribution into their journey, maybe other than referrals or maybe not even that, what really ended up mattering was they were at the right place at the right time and they knew about this opportunity, and of course they were skilled in their specific niche and ended up making 10. The good thing is tech companies pay a lot irrespective of whether you're a developer or in a non-tech role. Of course there will be some sort of disparity. Of course engineering leaders make much more, CEOs, the CMO will make much more, but you can still make room for yourself in a tech company even if you cannot code very well. That, let's move to the 9th point. The 9th point is understand tutorial hell very well. Maybe spend a week just understanding what it is and what not to do when you're trying to cover this journey of reaching one inflection point. I have a video on it, but long story short is tutorial hell is when you watch other people code but you're not able to do the same thing when you try to code it yourself, or you're able to do the same thing but you can't really create variations of that specific technology because it's more like ratta maar rahe ho tum. Yeah, you're trying to revise something and coding is not about revising, which is why the standard advice in coding is learn by doing and pick a project and then struggle to build it rather than looking at someone else building it, because then you get stuck in what's called tutorial hell and spend a decent chunk of time understanding what that is, because you don't want to spend 6 months in this journey and realize by the end you're stuck in tutorial hell. Don't even start the journey if you feel you're going down that route. Spend some time understanding what tutorial hell is. Don't do anything that leads you there, and even if that means your journey is slower, it's a good thing because slow and steady always wins the race, and slow learning is much better than learning quickly and not being able to do things on your own. So understand tutorial hell well and make sure you don't go down that route. With that, let's move to the last point. Last point is the journey is much more beautiful than the destination. Very cliche advice, but once you reach whatever you wanted to reach, whatever your goal might have been, big offer, international offer, remote offer, 100k offer, when you get that right, life becomes incredibly boring, and you cherish the days when you were struggling. So the journey of you trying to get somewhere, which when we're young and carefree, there are a bunch of motivations, right? It's not necessarily money. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's moving to a different country, sometimes it's buying a house for your family, buying your first car. Some people are really interested in luxury bikes, whatever that might be. Make sure you enjoy the process, because eventually everyone who's sort of consistent in tech sort of reaches there. Of course with a bunch of other factors, but mostly you reach that. And if you know that there is a next point you want to reach, which in India I think the ceiling really is 2 to 300k US dollars. If that's the salary that you want eventually, you're going to reach there if you're consistent. But this journey, which might take 1 year, 3 years, 10 years, whatever, is sort of very important, because you don't really want to obsess over an end goal. Life changes, things change, and where you are going to be might change very quickly. So don't over leverage on the destination and don't spend too much time thinking about it. Just focus on the next day, and wherever you want to reach will just be an outcome of this journey that you're trying to follow. That's 10 points of how you can cross the inflection point in tech. Hopefully, that was an insightful video. If not, let me know. What else do you want to see next? Let me know. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. Oi, Rabba. Tum, 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 tum.